I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and you take one of the most popular Android phones, and you take one of the most popular Windows phones, what do you get? A dogfight. That's what. It's the Samsung Galaxy Nexus and the HTC Titan, and the dogfight starts right now. Two hot devices, two different OSs, and two different carriers. It's dogfight time, my friends. You got the Samsung Galaxy Nexus over here on the left. This is the 4G LTE version that comes on Verizon. Now this thing's $299.99 with a 2-year agreement, and it has a 1.2 gigahertz dual-core TI OMAP processor. It has a 4.65-inch Super AMOLED HD display, so a display that supports 720p display resolution, if you will, and then a 5-megapixel camera on the back with 1080p HD video recording, and then you got an LTE radio in here, 1,850 milliamp hour battery, a front-facing camera, and of course this is the launch device for Ice Cream Sandwich or Android 4.0, and also the first carrier to get this device in the United States. Then you have the HTC Titan over here, and you know, Windows phones have been criticized in the past for not having the specs or not quite being up to par, if you will, with Android and iOS. Well, the Titan, while it's not all the way up to par in terms of specs to spec, this is definitely the flagship Windows phone device right now. This is packing a 1.5 gigahertz single-core Snapdragon processor, a 4.7-inch display, an 8-megapixel camera with 720p HD video recording. It's got a nice metal body, a front-facing camera as well, and of course it's supporting Windows Phone 7.5 or Mango. So it's nice and thin and light in typical HTC form here, and it has a 1,600 milliamp hour battery. So you've got a little bit of a smaller battery over here, but then again, you have HSPA Plus connectivity, so it says 4G, but in reality, this is AT&T's kind of lower tier 4G, if you will. This is LTE versus HSPA Plus over here that supports it up to 14.4 megabits per second. So I should give you a rundown. Two very different experiences over here, and Windows Phone to me often reminds me of iOS. It's a little bit more simplistic. It's more, you know, kind of form and look over functionality, if you will, you know, as opposed to Android. But I think it's it's up and coming, and you're going to see more and more of it in 2012 as it begins to take off with Nokia in the United States and more. So here we'll start with the Galaxy Nexus. Here's Ice Cream Sandwich, Android 4.0, and you're going to notice a couple of things if you haven't already seen my review. First of all, on-screen buttons. You can see they take up part of the 4.65-inch display there on the bottom, but when you turn the display off, the buttons are gone as well. But it's a nice build here. It's got a nice curved display. You've got your power button over on the right side, your micro USB charging port and 3.5mm headphone jack at the bottom, a volume rocker over here, and the display is curved. So this thing's nice and easy to hold up to your ear when you're on a long phone call. It's got a great earpiece, which we'll talk a little bit more about in part 2. But before I do that, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with 2 of these and more phones for use in our One Paw Bandit game. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk in without dealing with rebates, no paperwork, no waiting 8 to 10 weeks for any sort of debit card or dealing with debit cards, period. You'll deal with the after rebate price at Best Buy Mobile. But you can see Ice Cream Sandwich brings a number of changes to the Android platform. First of all, you can see all the way, you know, different notification bar here, different look and feel. You got a different menu structure, and you can see apps and widgets are grouped into the menu as well. So out of the box, you get some Verizon stuff, not too much, but pre-installed Verizon stuff. My Verizon Mobile and then VZ Backup Assistant are both pre-installed and can't be removed on the Nexus. And that combined with the fact that the Verizon 4G LTE logo is on the back make people think, well, this is supposed to be a Nexus device. This is a flagship Android device that, you know, is supposed to be kind of a purest experience when it comes to Android. Is that true with this device? I think it is, you know, for the most part, minus, of course, those Verizon programs, but still not enough to be incredibly intrusive, if you will. So you got those apps, and of course you can scroll over and access your widgets directly from here, and you do get some nice new widgets in Ice Cream Sandwich. No huge changes by any means, but the widgets are dynamic, and a lot of the stock Android widgets can be resizable, which if you've read or watched any of my reviews with TouchWiz 4.0 or Motorola's custom UI, you know I love my resizable widgets, and they're really nice because when you're in a tight space, you can easily resize the widget. But these are also dynamic, so you can scroll up and down through here without even opening your Gmail inbox, and you can access an email pretty quickly. So you'll see all things have changed. Settings look different as well, and they're grouped by wireless and networks, device, personal, and system. And you got some changes over there. So over here, back to Mango, you can see typical tile setup. It's called Metro UI, and it's intended to look just like subway tiles. Now, one thing I don't like about this is, you know, Mango, even though it's 7.5, it's the next revision of Windows Phone. Windows Phone in general is still very much in its infancy, and there are some things I'd like to see in future versions of the mobile OS. First of all, I'd like to see, for example, you'll notice the calendar tile here is a rectangular tile, while you'll notice the messaging tile, for example, is a square tile. Well, you can't change that. You can't make it a rectangular tile, and I can really see use for that, particularly with messaging and mail. You can make it a rectangular tile and, you know, see a nice little preview of your messages or your emails. or for your calls, for example, you can see voicemails, things like that, all from the main screen. We can't do that. It doesn't give you the option between square and rectangle. Also, and this is a personal thing, but you can't see the signal strength indicator at all times. There's no option to leave it on the screen. You'll notice after a few seconds it's going to pop back up and go away, leaving only the time. So you can't see battery. You have to pull that down each and every time you want to see that information. So obviously taking a minimalistic approach, but still very frustrating to say the least if you're like me and you go in an area where it's a dead spot or you're constantly in and out of less than perfect signal strength areas. That can be a problem. So out of this one you get typical AT&T stuff: code scanner, family map navigator, Uverse mobile, some stuff you can see I've installed, HTC hub pre-installed. You get Zune, you get Xbox Live on this bad boy, you get my AT&T, and then you get YP Mobile. Now, the benefit here, all the AT&T stuff can be uninstalled nice and easily. You can see uninstall, press and hold, and I can either pin it to the start, and by pinning it to the start, you'll see it brings the tile down to the main screen. Now, Mango brings in dynamic tiles, which is really nice because some of these tiles are dynamic. For example, if you've been watching, you can see the weather channel tile is dynamic. It's showing me Charlotte, it's showing me the weather, and it's flipping back and forth in real time. A lot of tiles are like that. That's a nice change to Windows Phone. But all in all, very clean, a very fluid performance. And then, of course, multitasking has been added, or at least a version of multitasking, if you will, by scrolling or pressing and holding the back button and scrolling through. So that's a nice little touch as well. So let's go to messaging on both of these devices. Get started with the on-screen keyboards. Now, you get one keyboard with both of these out of the box, and unfortunately, if you're a Swipe fan, Swipe does not work, at least officially, on Ice Cream Sandwich just yet. So we'll come down here and go to New Conversation. We'll start it here, and you can see some changes. First of all, Ice Cream Sandwich Android 4.0, the stock keyboard is a huge improvement over Gingerbread. Much better in the autocorrect department, so we'll say the Quick Brown Fox. And I can't win with you guys on YouTube. It's like whenever I do the Quick Brown Fox, you're like, where's the lazy rumor dog? Or the busy rumor dog. When I do the busy rumor dog, you're like, where's the Quick Brown Fox? So I'm going to say the Quick Brown Fox is hanging out with the busy rumor dog. How about that? Take that, YouTube. Take that. Busy rumor dog. Throw them both in one sentence. Oh yeah, now it's interesting, take a look at how long it takes to transition from portrait to landscape. Very interesting for a flagship device with a pretty speedy processor and nice specs, gig of RAM and more. It's pretty interesting to see the transition effects take that long. You'll notice when I do that, the on-screen buttons move around on the display. But you get a nice landscape keyboard, 4.65-inch display here, and this is a true HD display, like I said. Now the downside is it does have PenTile technology pre-installed, and you really can kind of tell, at least in my opinion, when you get into a low brightness area, like if you have it set to automatic brightness or you have it set to low brightness, manually configured, you can really see some pixelation, kind of the screen's kind of washed out. Right now I have the brightness turned up to full capacity for the video, so you don't really notice it. But take a look at that in store or before you buy the device, because it is kind of interesting. I think at least on the HD screen front, the award still goes to the HTC Resound. Then over here you have the stock Windows keyboard, and you can see Brown Fox is happy that he's hanging out with the... And I love the way it sounds. I love how quick and easy it is. And the only little frustration I have is you got a lot of dead space over here on the screen. This is a 4.7-inch WVGA display, and you can see, you get of course, your shortcut buttons down here at the bottom where you can attach stuff. You can use voice to text, and you can send once I have a recipient. But once you throw it over into landscape mode, you can see there's some dead space over here. You'd think they would have expanded this keyboard out a little bit more, but alas, they did not. Now, if you're looking at these and you're like, I kind of wonder what these mean, well, you can press these three little dots over here, and it brings up the text below. So send, attach, and speak. So nice, again, very minimalistic. And another big difference over here is that this one is being pre-installed as a result of it being a Microsoft device. And then, of course, this Android's a product of Google, so you see a lot of Google integration over on Android. So let's take a look at the browsers as well. 4G LTE technology over here. So very, very fast if you're in a market with 4G. HSPA Plus over here on the AT&T side, also fast, but not quite as fast as AT&T's LTE network or Verizon's LTE network. So we're going to load up phonedog.com on both of these devices. PhoneDog, not foam, phonedog.com, and that's not right. Yeah, there we go, that works. And phonedog.com, you can see loading up relatively quickly on both of these devices. Now, a couple caveats. First of all, you got flash compatibility over here, so you're noticing the advertisements. Anything that has flash, be it an embedded video or article, or advertisements, anything like that. That said, pinch to zoom, very responsive, and I like the way they changed it around an Ice Cream Sandwich, where you can access pretty easily new tabs. I can open up a secondary tab, come back over here, and I can easily pick up where I left off on PhoneDog and use pinch to zoom. So very responsive, but again, take a look at the transition effects. A little bit slow over there. Whereas over here, fantastically fluid, but you don't get the flash performance, or you don't get any flash capabilities rather over here. You'll notice that the ads, and that's, you know, well and good. You may not want to see ads if you're talking about PhoneDog in particular. That may be good for you, but the downside is if anything, you know, you go to anything on any website that involves flash, it's not going to work. Transition effects, incredibly responsive, and I love that little transition effect that is shown off in Microsoft's Windows Phone. Pretty impressive, and even though it takes a couple of seconds, it kind of trains or throws the eye off and makes it look aesthetically pleasing.